pockets and zippers on this backpack are different. The pockets that we're going to look at now will be our side pockets, which will just have a slip-in pocket, like a patch pocket on the side, where we can just slip our hand into the side of it and put something into the pocket. We've got a cutaway stabilizer, we put our batting on, we have trimmed our batting back and then done a placement line for our main fabric, which we're stitching on now. Make sure the fabric's taut. We've used the denim, which has got a little bit of stretch in it, and there's not a stretch denim, but denim always has a bit of a stretch. Trim back our top edge back to our stitching line 2 or 3 millimeters away from the line, and we're going to then apply our contrast fabric on top of that. First of all, though, we'll need to do a placement line for our contrast fabric. Placement line for our fabric. Then we'll put our contrasting fabric on. Had very little of this fabric left, so you'll find that points just off the fabric. It will be covered by stitching though, because I know how this stitches out. Trim that layer back, and then we're going to do our quilting. Just straight line quilting at the base of this pattern. Then we'll be following our instructions and our numbering system within our notes to apply the embroidery. So we can start with our satin stitches on the top contrast, and then our satin stitch along the edge where our contrast joins our main fabric. Ending up with our leaves and berries. Going to stitch a placement line once our design is done across the piece, and that's where our pockets, the top edge of our pocket is going to sit against. So contrast fabric, and it's a basting line and it's a placement line where we're going to put our top edge of our fabric just so as it covers, and we're going to stick it into place with some washi tape and just stitch around the edge of it. Make sure the foot doesn't catch up with that first part of the pocket. There we have it. It's a very, very simple side pocket. We've got 2 of these to make. Next pocket's got a zipper in the top, so our tearaway stabilizer is in our hoop, our batting is in our hoop. The batting sits below the zip area. It's been trimmed back, so we've done our placement lines for our zip. Zip on the left hand side, and we're going to put it on with some washi tape within the perimeter of the hoop. Try not to get it involved in the needle if you possibly can. Well, it doesn't matter, but just have to rip it off again. So stitch that into place. Got tearaway in the hoop because we want to tear it from behind the zip once the zip is completed. Otherwise you can't open the zip pocket. Take our washi tape off and then tape our zip into place so as we know where that zip puller is. There's nothing worse than it appearing out of nowhere under the needle. I'm going to place our lining on the back. Lining should be above the top zip stitching line. And then we're going to place our top of our pocket fabric so as a 1/4 inch past our top stitching line of our top of our zip, and so both our lining and our top piece of our pocket will be stitched on at the same time. I'm just putting a strip of stabilizer inside this before we stitch it down, just to give it some more rigidity, because this is the actual front of our backpack, so it needs to have a bit of firmness in that top edge so as it doesn't become floppy or flop down. Just needs to have a little bit more strength. You could put some batting in there. You could put some of the heavy stabilizer, the bag batting, stabilizer if you wish. Turn the hoop over, tuck that out of the way, and then place this piece of lining so as it sits below the lower line of the zip stitching line. flat, flat, wrap it over the hoop, and I just tuck that under and pin it into place temporarily. Keeps it out of the way. And again, we're going to put the main fabric for the front into position, and it sits again 1/4 of an inch below the stitching line of that zip, and it's going to stitch all those layers in together, which is great. And then we're going to pull that down and stitch around the area of our main fabric. We're going to trim that bottom edge off, just 2 millimeters away from the stitching, and then apply our contrast fabric on top of the placement line which we're stitching right at the present moment. Had very, very little fabric, as I said, so I'm just using the scraps here really. Right, so we're going to trim that back to our stitching line, and then do our satin stitch along the edge of it with a decorative finish, and then do the little berries. Pull the lining down, tape it into place, and just stitch across. Just gives you the matching top stitching as to the top of the zip. Turn it over again. Now this is where we're going to need to actually just put our cross mark for our magnetic clasp. There's a little cross that is formed there. So we're going to take that over to the workstation and put our clasp in. So you can see the little X. I pop the washer on top, centralize it over the X, bouncy thing it is. And I just marked in each of those areas, and then I'm going to cut to the 2 slashes just with a quick unpick or a seam ripper. Use a sharp pair of scissors, and then we put those prongs through. Hopefully I've cut all the way through, and if I haven't, I just need to open that up a little bit more. Just not coming through, I just need a little bit more. Right, that's through. Here's my 2 prongs, put my washer on the back, then open those 2 prongs up, press them flat, and that is my one side of my magnetic closure. Tape both of those lining pieces down, and then we're just going to stitch around the perimeter of that to hold all that pocket together. Make sure you open your zip up so as your zip tab is in the, so your zip puller is in the middle of your work, otherwise you will not be able to open your zip up and you'll cut your zip tab off, which is not what we want. Oops, there's my washi tape falling off the back. Hopefully there's no pleat on the back of the work. Let's have a look. Nope, success, excellent. There we go. That's the pocket formed. So when we open that up, we can pull that stabilizer away, because it's actually a tearaway, and that will allow us to put our hand in our pocket. If you don't want to use a tearaway, you could use a cutaway, and then you just cut the window out behind the zip once you put the zip down. The first thing you do after you put your zip on, you would actually cut that window out. So I don't always use tearaway. So reduce this back to 1/2 inch seams from our outside perimeter stitching. And there we have a zipper pocket. The other pockets are done in a similar fashion to this, just in different places, but it's the same method.